Longheads. We know you're listening.
Again.
Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels, demons, monsters, and serpents, to the episode you did not know you had been waiting for, episode 72 of Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. And we have a great show for you again. We've been having the same technical difficulties that we had last week, where we lost an entire segment. We just lost the entire first segment. But you don't know that because you didn't.
We are handling all technical difficulties flawlessly. With zero mistakes.
Except for the mistake of losing the entire first segment. But that's okay. And we do have a guest for this show. We have Mr. Brenner Burgess, who's been on the show before. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Back for round two.
Back for round two, second one. Yep.
Welcome back again.
Round 72.
Yeah.
Man, I'm glad we're not having to do this 72 times.
I know.
Yeah.
Don't say that.
Don't tempt the 72 gods. Yeah, please don't listen to that, gods of 72. All right, and as always, we have with us our good friend and the Longhead, Mr. Brett England. How you doing, buddy?
I still have 72 problems, but this podcast still is not one.
Right.
I had completely forgotten about that joke that you did the first time, so it was funny again. That was cool. All right. Okay, as always, we have space weather news. Arctic Green Halloween. A stream of solar wind flowing from a small hole in the sun's atmosphere is approaching Earth. Estimated time of arrival, October 31st. The gaseous material cloud could create a ghostly green sky around the Arctic Circle for Halloween, which should be cool.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. And also, spacecraft makes record close approach to the sun. This is a Sun Probe update.
Sun Probe!
Sun Probe! NASA's Parker Solar Probe is now closer to the sun than any other spacecraft in history, shattering the previous record of 26.6 million miles set by the Helios 2 spacecraft in 1976. The probe is now well inside the orbit of Mercury. It is a proud moment for our team, says project manager Andy Dreisman of the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. Parker just broke the record. The spacecraft is accelerating sunward for the mission's first perihelion on November 5th. At closest approach, the solar disk will seem 6 times wider than it does on Earth as the probe is hit by brutal heat and radiation, in NASA's words. Parker's carbon composite heat shield is expected to heat up to a sizzling 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Parker's prime mission is to investigate the origin of the solar wind, a project best done uncomfortably close to the star. Parker will trace the solar wind back to its source and find out how it escapes the sun's gravity and magnetic confinement. Russell Howard of the Naval Research Laboratory expects to learn a lot from this encounter. We might detect magnetic islands in the solar wind, which have been theoretically predicted. And if a CME or solar explosion happens or a comet passes through the sun's atmosphere while we are so nearby, it could be spectacular. Howard is the principal investigator for WISPR, W-I-S-P-R, the probe's wide-field camera system. WISPR can actually see the solar wind, allowing it to image clouds and shockwaves as they approach and pass the spacecraft. Other sensors on the spacecraft will sample the structures that WISPR sees, making measurements of particles and fields that researchers can use to test competing theories. We lose communication with the spacecraft during the perihelion period, which begins next week, notes Howard. This is because there isn't sufficient power to drive both the instruments and the transmitter. The first dump of data will occur early in December. Stay tuned for that. Now, it's interesting to me that, like, how can you be so close to the sun, out in space, and not have enough power to run everything on the spacecraft? That, you know, it's like
Not bringing solar panels?
I know. Do you not have solar panels?
Maybe they don't have solar panels that can take that heat.
Yeah. It's just interesting because, like, almost every other satellite is powered by solar panels, and it's
This
like,
one could probably be powered by what are those, like, heat sink things or whatever?
oh yeah, the differences in heat.
Yeah. What are they called? One side's
we
hot,
talked about it.
the other side's cold, and it makes electricity.
It's little things that are used in those devices that use electricity or use fire to make electricity. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, little stoves that you like light a little fire in it and then you charge your phone from it.
I was thinking of the little electronic devices that they get hot on one side and cold on the other when you apply electricity.
Yeah, those things. Whatever they're called.
But this is like they make it. They're like tiny little computer chip thingies. What do I got here?
No, go to the chat.
Phone a friend. Phone GMA.
Yeah, just phone up GMA.
Yeah, we need to phone GMA.
Well, I know that they've also had that idea for actual power plants. Like, I don't know if it's been implemented or not, but thermoelectric generators.
Yeah, so in space, it'd be perfect. You know, you put the
Because the dark side's freezing.
right. So the side that's facing the sun gets hot. The side that's facing away from the sun's really cold, and electricity comes out.
Right. Done. Electricity comes out. It's magic.
It is magic.
But I know
It's
that
like, hey, we'll build you a spaceship. You just have to fly really close to the sun.
once you're there, you'll have electricity, and you can charge your phone.
Hang in there for a while.
I know that there's been ideas or proposals. I'm not sure if anybody's built one yet for having that on Earth using the cold at the depths of the ocean. So like there are places where the ocean just drops off precipitously right at the shoreline, right? You know, straight cliffs. And so there's an idea that you could build a power plant based on that. You have these giant pipes that basically run way down into the depths of the ocean where it's freezing cold down there, and then you have like the pipes come up, and then there's the warm water baths on the surface where they're heated by the sun, and then you can basically generate electricity that way. But nobody's done it because they're unsure, because that actually works as a heat pump too, and they're unsure of the dangers of pumping all that heat down there in the ocean where it's it stays cold all the time. So
There's like volcanoes down there.
yeah, I know. It's like
Come on.
they're like, well, it's like heat pollution. Like okay, all right. You don't want to make the Cephas mad. I got you. The last thing we want is the Cephas to get mad because we're pumping heat down there in the cold, dark depths.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys. I'm actually kind of terrified of squid and
Yeah.
Well,
Cephas
yeah.
in general.
They're basically big balls of jelly that are mad. It sucks.
They're probably not from this planet.
Right. They're giant alien balls of jelly that are mad.
Yeah.
They can edit their own RNA. That proves that they're mad. And they've been mad for 240 million years.
Yeah.
They landed here
I
and
just
they've
stay
been
away
mad
from
ever since.
That's my rule.
Yeah. I actually had somebody ask me, like, what is this Cephas thing? And I was like, dude, they're like shapeshifters that hate us, and they have tentacles. Just stay away from them. All right, so
So, Russ, you mentioned something in that article that stood out. I didn't hear it the first time you talked about it. So was it implying Lagrangian points around the sun? I guess like between the sun and some of the other celestial bodies.
Like Mercury or whatever.
No, something. It was like towards the end of the article, like gravity wells or something.
he said he said magnetic holes.
Yeah. In the solar wind, something about.
Yeah, so so the problem that they have is like there's this solar flux that goes through the entire solar system outwards from the sun. Okay, and nobody has been able to figure out how it's escaping the sun because the sun's gravity is massive, right? So how is this like massive wind, which is a bunch of gas and stuff coming out of the sun all the time and flowing through the entire solar system and creating the helios sheath, which is a big sphere around the entire solar system where the outflowing solar flux its inertia drops as it runs away from the sun, and the helios sheath is the place where the outflowing solar flux is equal to the inflowing interstellar flux from the rest of the galaxy and the other stars, and it creates this gigantic bubble around the solar system called the helios sheath. And they've never been able to it's not clearly understood how all of that, because you can sit there and calculate the amount of incoming material from all the other from everywhere else in the universe, and that's a lot of stuff. So how does the sun push out enough material from itself where it's escaping the gravity to basically push all that stuff away from us? Because if the helios sheath wasn't there, life would not be possible on Earth because of all the hard radiation coming from the rest of the universe. So
Yeah, that's probably 1/72 mass of all the stuff going with the sun. I don't know what that-
But that makes me think of the whole idea of the electric universe is based on. So the force of the electric field or whatever is so much more powerful than gravity.
Yeah.
So if it's an electrical phenomenon that's pushing all of this stuff away from the sun,
Right.
then that would make sense. Like it can haul ass away from the sun, even though the sun's gravity is
Massive.
ridiculous because the force of the electricity
Is far stronger.
It's far stronger than,
Yeah.
than the
The
gravity.
gravitic force is like the weakest, the weakest fundamental force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time. I am just 100% on board with the electric universe theory.
Yeah.
Like, I think my approach to the electric universe theory was probably the opposite of Russ's. Where, like, I started reading these articles and, like, looking up these YouTube videos and stuff like that. And everything I
all
read
in.
or heard was like, yeah, that's right. They're totally right. Yeah, this does explain everything. Like, over and over again to a point where I was just like, okay, I give up. You guys win. I'm sold. Coming in.
Yeah. So
Whereas I think Russ he just didn't believe any of it.
Well, that's because so the way it was the opposite is that you went straight to the source, whereas I kept getting it from like these lunatics that were.
Oh, you were in the forums.
Well, I was just anywhere. I mean, like YouTube or whatever, and like people are talking about stuff, and some crazy guy would come in. They're like, "Electric universe! Oh my god!" Blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, Jesus, shut up. They're like fanatics, and I'm just like, you don't. And everything they said, it was like, I don't want to talk crap about them, but they reminded me of flat earthers. It was like they didn't know anything that they were talking about, and they would try to explain these concepts. Which, when I went later and looked at the source, I was like, oh, okay. I see what they're trying to say here, and that makes sense. But these fanatics, these electric universe crazies just couldn't explain it, and they just sounded ridiculous to me.
That's totally what I would be if I actually gave a shit enough to like get online and talk about the things that I think I understand that I really don't.
You mean like you'd be like one of those crazies? Oh, it's electric universe,
totally.
man. I'm telling you, this explains everything. It's because it's
true.
It's
I know
really
it.
serious. Yeah.
Feel it. I'll try to explain it, but I won't.
I promise it explains everything. Gravity is dumb. Yeah, they always came off to me as like they just didn't know what the hell they were talking about, and they couldn't explain anything. It was a lot like talking to flat earthers. You're just like, nothing they say makes sense. But then when I went and looked at the actual Thunderbolts project and read their stuff, I was like, okay, that does make sense. They just have these fanatical followers who, and you know what? Those might be level 2 trolls. You never know. Like it could be people trolling electric, like making it sound ridiculous so that people don't look at it. It worked on me for years.
You got trolled, bro.
I was totally trolled.
Wait, is there also like a ranking system for trolls? Like I know we started one for Skirp Derp. For Skirp Cards.
See?
Hey, you have the problem too.
Everybody gets it right unless they're on the show, and then they say the wrong word.
I get it right 100% of the time, all the time,
Except for that one time.
until right now. That may have been the first time ever.
Well,
Yeah. So what's the troll ranking?
I just have
system?
I have 2 levels basically, and I just came up with like a level 1 troll is someone who is just like, so if you have some, like people in there having a discussion, a level 1 troll comes in there and just tries to disrupt the discussion by calling people names or trying to sidetrack people or whatever. Hating on various people with various ideas or whatever. A level 2 troll is someone pretending to be the people that he hates in order to make other people also hate that kind of person.
It's so dirty.
Yeah. So you go in there and act like, you're this person with this kind of idea, and then you just completely act ridiculous to make other people also not like that idea or that person. That's a level 2 troll.
Oh man, you got level 2.
How does a troll level up? Right, because eventually a level 1 troll figures out that they're not very good at making other people also hate the people that they hate. So they're like, wait, I can make other people hate this person by pretending to be those kinds of persons and then acting like I think they act, even though they don't actually act that way. You know what I'm saying? And you can see this mindset happening. So That's what I think of as a level 2 troll. There might be higher levels. I just haven't discovered them yet. I'm not.
Funny. It's like if they have to like join like some society or like get into a website and like get into this group, they become like a double agent level 2 troll.
Yeah. But you can tell a level 2 troll when it's basically when, you know, any given character type is acting as their caricature. You know what I'm saying? That's how I look at it. Like, you know, like you see the way various types of people act, or the way that they talk about things or whatever, and then there's the ways that scriptards or trolls think that those people act, and when you see, but they don't ever actually act like that, right? So when you see somebody in there acting exactly like the opposition thinks they act, that's a level 2 troll, because it's like those people don't actually act that way. That's just how people project them acting, and I don't know. It's difficult to explain, but that's how I tell the difference. You know, I'm just like, you're a level 2 troll. You're pretending to be
if it perfectly fits the
stereotype,
the caricatures that the opposition makes up, then it's a level 2 troll.
Exactly. Right.
Brett, are you saying Gaia?
Yeah. Gaia. Like, that's our caricature of that kind of person, and like they don't actually do that, right? So if I was level 2 trolling and I was doing that, then you would know. If I was like in there pretending to be like this crystal hippie, and I'm just like, oh yeah, Gaia, and then you know I'm trolling, because those people don't actually do that. I think. Maybe they do. I don't know.
So I live in Austin, Texas, and I've run across like quite a few crystal hippies. I mean, they're everywhere. But like I can't talk to a crystal hippie without talking about piezoelectricity now. Like, it just,
Yeah. That happens to us too.
like I can't resist it.
Yeah, they put that crystal on their forehead and you want to flick it and see if it shocks them.
Yeah, like, hey, let me grab my hammer. I'll be right back.
You're like,
Dink it.
trust me, I'm actually going to add energy to this
That's
crystal
right.
by
Yeah.
smashing it. Do they know about piezoelectricity?
No, none of them. No, well, yeah, no, none. I can't think of one.
Does it blow their mind?
No. Maybe. If they do, they don't talk about it.
Crystal hippies. That's cool.
I'm pretty bad at explaining things. I've just like come to accept that. I try. I'll do my best. One of these days, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, if you start explaining by hitting their crystal with a hammer, it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah, it's not that smooth.
Just put a grill starter in your pocket.
Yeah, that's how you explain it. Click.
No,
out.
I'm gonna put that on a necklace. And it's gonna be great.
Click out.
Just give you a little
Every time.
head jerk.
All right. So I have this article that I've been wanting to read, and this is a good chance to do it. It's called Thundersnake, a mystery boom at Ohio's Serpent Mound. This is from Mysterious Universe. The phenomenon known today as mystery booms, involving loud, explosive noises of seemingly unexplained origin, have been documented around the world for centuries. The noises are often likened to loud thunder, or more simply booms or explosions, with many competing theories about their origins. Beginning towards the end of 2014, there was a notable increase in media coverage of these unusual noises, if not the occurrences of the sounds themselves, although existing scientific literature supports the clear presence of so-called mystery booms much earlier. Documented by researchers the likes of David P. Hill, scientist emeritus with the U.S. Geological Survey, and the American physicist William R. Corliss, a variety of factors ranging from seismic phenomena to atmospheric conditions that may allow recognizable noises such as controlled explosions at munitions facilities to be carried across unusual distances have been offered as possible sources. I'll never forget my one and only experience with a mystery boom, which occurred at a rather novel location, Ohio's Serpent Mound in Adams County, Ohio. First, a bit of background. The earthwork in question is located on a cliff top overlooking Brush Creek. The mound is regarded as the largest serpent effigy mound anywhere in the world, although similar, seemingly unrelated structures exist in parts of Europe and other locales. The likely builders of the serpent mound, no, sorry, they weren't ancient aliens, were the Fort Ancient culture, although recent radiocarbon dating carried out with samples from the site suggests the possibility that an earlier group, most likely the Adena culture, could also have built it. According to Dr. Brad Lepper of the Ohio History Connection, it remains likely that the Fort Ancient culture had been the builders, since there is cultural context upon which an association could be made between this later culture and the prevalence of snakes in their mythology, unlike the Adena culture. Last October, a group of friends and I, collectively operating as the Seven Ages Research Associates, traveled together to visit Serpent Mound. We arrived under balmy conditions, and fall color had begun to extend across the branches of the trees that lined the parking lot as we pulled up adjacent to the mound. We stepped out of the vehicle and began to unload our cameras and other gear from the back of the car when the three of us, Jason Pintrail, an environmental scientist, James Waldo, a professional geologist, and myself were struck by the sound of a massive explosion, which seemingly came from an unseen source nearby. "What in the hell was that?" James explained. Having served with the U.S. Army under active duty and as a reservist for nearly 3 decades, James held a variety of positions in the field of communications and as a combat engineer, ultimately retiring at the rank of major. In essence, during his years in combat, James had heard his fair share of explosions. "That sounded like artillery," Jason added, also no stranger to controlled demolitions and explosions, having a background in environmental science. Both of my companions agreed that the source of the noise was most similar to a form of artillery in which the moments following the blast, which could be felt in our midsections as it pulsed through the valley. I was reminded immediately of the sound of cannon fire, which often accompanies Civil War and other historical reenactments. As startling as the experience had been, we nearly forgot it, since the next hour was spent surveying and photographing one of the most impressive Native American monuments in the region, if not the world. The fact that a mystery boom had rattled us was quickly upstaged by our fascination with the mound. Why had it been built, and what was its significance? Had it been designed to communicate an ancient eclipse? There are, after all, celestial components to the site that are recognized by archaeologists, which concern the alignment between the snake's open mouth and the setting of the sun on the day of the summer solstice. Or, more simply, had it been a representation of a creation myth? It was only days later that I was reminded of the strange sound that accompanied our visit when I came across ProPublica's Bombs in Your Backyard page, which features a number of low, medium, and high-risk chemical and explosive sites throughout the United States. The closest of these to Serpent Mound is the Camp Sherman Artillery Range, located about an hour away. With the sound we heard have carried this far, a distance of approximately 40 miles, as the crow flies. It's certainly possible. Going as far back as 1874, English researcher John Tyndall recounted that in a letter from R.G.H. Keene, who had observed the Battle of Gaines' Mill during the American Civil War, Keene had marveled at how sounds of gunfire on a nearby battleground was inaudible, despite reports of loud noise from artillery heard more than 100 miles away. Okay, so basically, like, this guy sat there and watched a battle happen, and he could see all the flashes and everything, but he couldn't hear anything, even though people from a place that was much farther away were hearing all the artillery and everything like that.
Yeah.
The report was found by Thomas B. Gabrielson of Pennsylvania State University's Applied Research Laboratory and featured in his 2015 paper, Refraction of Sound in the Atmosphere, which explored the conditions under which loud sounds can be carried across great distances under the proper atmospheric conditions. As far as the true source of the noise we heard at Serpent Mound in October 2017, it's anyone's guess. If I were a betting man, my money would go to the relative nearness of the Camp Sherman site, although plenty of other causes might be worth considering, ranging from those seismic in nature to different varieties of atmospheric phenomenon that could cause such a thing, or, as I had suggested earlier, perhaps there really was some kind of reenactment occurring that afternoon nearby, of which my company and I had remained unaware. So, I find that interesting, like, they get out of the car and they're like, oh, with this, you know, there's this enormous boom, and like, and the thing, to me, clearly looks like a depiction of an impact, and there's the giant, you know, astrobeam right next to it.
Yeah.
So it's very, you know, he doesn't talk about any of that in the article, and I found that strange, but I don't even know if he knows that. That was Micah Hanks from the Gralien Report.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, so...
this is not on the topic of the boom, but it's interesting to me that the archaeologists think that the Serpent Mound is more likely to be this later culture who had, like, serpent mythology.
Right. Yeah,
well, what better thing to create serpent mythology than a big-ass mound that you find in the woods?
Right, exactly. The reason they had serpent mythology is because they found the mound, not because... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that it's much older than they think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everything is much older than people think.
Yeah. Again, because they're doing it by context. There's no way to date the mound. You know, you can't really date it. It's not possible. And they, you know,
Well, I mean, if you were to find biological matter inside the mound, if you were to dig into it,
But that you never know if it could, what if it was restored?
Yeah.
yeah.
You know?
yeah, dig something up.
And I definitely think it was restored.
Yeah.
by
It's
later
been
cultures.
maintained by later cultures.
I'm pretty sure there are intrusive burials in it.
assholes.
Hey, they just wanted to be close to the serpent gods.
It's the idiot lord thing.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah.
The other thing that about the article, though, that's interesting, this idea of you know, these certain atmospheric conditions that can carry sounds a long way away. It's like a wormhole of sound.
Yeah.
Soundworm. Something. So if, like, you're out there and it's a perfectly clear sky, and then suddenly you start hearing it's just freaking. You're like, it's just like the sound worm that opened up to some place hundreds of miles away that's like got this crazy thunderstorm going on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why the world needs to be like a video game. So when that sound wormhole opens up, you know why there's sound coming from far away, because it's like a secret just opened up. But I do think it's like, because he described it as, you know, the sound was so intense that they felt it.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know, like, yeah, I can see how you could hear something from far away, like a controlled munitions explosion or artillery or whatever. But when you can feel it, that means you're pretty close.
Yeah.
You know, unless it's thunder. But even thunder, like the kind of thunder you can feel in your midsection, is close to you. It happens right after the lightning strikes, or like right when it's striking. You know, it's right there. So I don't know enough about atmospheric refraction to know if it could carry the impact of that sound like that so far.
It might just be their minds exploding whenever they walked up on that thing. So, I mean, if I ended up at the pyramids, I'm pretty sure I would be expecting an explosion.
Yeah.
In my mind.
You would get out of the car and then boom, and you'd be like, "What the hell was that?" And
Yeah,
everyone's
that,
like,
that was
"What?"
my mind. Don't worry.
If you were there, that's probably what you would have said. Right when you all get out of the car.
Everybody, oh, you mean everybody else hears the boom? And you're like, "Don't worry, it's just my mind exploding."
Yeah. Situation normal.
I'll have to remember that. So if I'm with anybody and there's a giant boom in the sky, just be like, "That was just my mind blowing. Just thought of something crazy."
Okay. Give me a minute.
All right, Brenner, did you have an article?
Yeah. And I blame Kyle for it. So, eerie death comet with a skull face will zip past Earth just after Halloween. So,
right.
Kyle,
I knew
you
it.
mentioned this comet in some episode I listened to recently, and I was just like, what? There's this giant skull
Yeah.
flying around
It's a
up
giant
there
skull comet
That passes
So,
near
that makes
Halloween.
green clouds. Yeah.
Yeah, so a death comet will pass Earth November 11th, about 24 million miles away. It last showed itself on Halloween 2015, about 302,000 miles away from Earth.
No, so it was really close the last time.
Yeah, so that's what really caught my attention. Besides the fact that the comet has a human skull face and has been dubbed the Halloween asteroid. So anyway, yeah, like this article I was reading posted this graphic of the path it took in 2015. Let me see if I can send it to you guys.
I just got a huge
Because-
kick out of that, dude. Like, when I saw the news, like, everybody's freaking out. Like,
Yeah, 'cause
this
it's
skull
giant.
comet.
Yeah, it's freaking face of death coming straight at us.
Well, okay, check. I mean, like, look at this graphic. It's nuts. Look, because I looked at it and I was like, it's like that almost just like straight up clipped us. And
Yes.
this makes me think, I don't know. I know that's not the only one. I know there are more of them.
Yeah.
Out there
I wonder
just
if that-
floating around, just waiting to nail us. And
But
so
do they
every day I'm just watching the sky. Just
But
waiting
do
for
they
it to
all
happen.
look like skulls? That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they don't all look like skulls. That's the only one. That's probably the one that's going to hit us.
So I wonder if that green stuff that's going to be in the atmosphere or whatever is part of the tail of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Comet.
I mean, the article that I read last
It
week.
came so close, like we would be running.
Yeah, that we're running through it.
Wait.
Yeah.
So the green stuff was real? I thought you were just talking about Harry Potter.
No, it's real. Like I read an article last week that there was going to be green, that there was this serpent that we're going to see in the sky for the holiday season or whatever. It's got comet. I don't know if it's this body, but there's supposed to be this comet that is going to be in the skies all the way through the new year, and they're saying that it should reach a certain brightness, and you should be able to see it with the naked eye. Which I was skeptical about because like for the last 10 or 15 years, every comet that was supposed to be awesome has not been. It's been total letdown. So I'm not getting my
There's little baby dragons, no
Yeah.
big tails.
Yeah. I want to see a serpent across the sky. I want to go out there and be like, oh my god, there's a snake in the sky.
So is this Halloween Death Comet, is it really a comet or is it just an asteroid? Like, in other words, is it live, like when it gets close to the sun, is it spewing out gas and making a tail? Or is it just an asteroid?
Yeah, I don't know.
Science.
Yeah, do you have that information, Brenner? Is it actually a comet?
No, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's an asteroid. So I don't know. But there is a comet that's supposed to be in the sky this season. But I don't know if it's this one.
Yeah. It would be cool though if it just started shooting gas out of its eyes or something that was going by. It's like, oh!
Yeah, that was the one that we were saying.
Awesome fossil face! Awesome fossil face! Strike your pose!
That's right. Strike your pose. It's time to make an awesome fossil face.
Okay, the Watcher says Skull Comet is an asteroid, so
All right, well, we're going to take a break.
soon to be a meteorite.
Soon to be a giant meteor exploding over Siberia. We're going to take a quick break and we'll come back for the second segment of episode 72.
And we're back. 72 problems, not one of which is this podcast. Episode 72. And we are going to get into some of the crazy synchronicities about 72.
Yeah, but first, I actually thought of this. That mystery boom story reminded me of something like we have a personal anecdote here. It was kind of the same thing. So this happened to the Watcher and I when we went to Big Bend, and I kind of completely forgot about it because it happened as we were driving there, and it was the same. It was a mystery sound. So we had entered the park, right, and like you pass the sign that says entering Big Bend, and the speed limit goes down to 45 miles an hour, but you still have like 100 miles to go or whatever. It's not really 100 miles, but it seems like forever. You're just driving across this long flat floodplain with all this. All this catastrophic deposited material all around you. And so we're driving along this at 45 miles an hour, trying not to break the speed limit, even though the road just goes off into infinity. And, you're driving towards mountains that are far away. And we're driving along and just, we're talking or whatever, and everything's normal. And then suddenly we hear this bump, bump, bump. Like, it sounded like a car horn. I immediately looked up at the rearview mirror, thinking that somebody behind me was honking because I was going 45 miles an hour, going slow. And I looked up and the road is totally empty, and I'm like, what? And I looked at, and Brett, he's looking around too. We're both looking around. So he heard it, and it clearly came from outside the car. Like I checked, I was like, what, like my phone doesn't make a sound like this. It didn't sound like it came from a phone anyway. It didn't come from the car stereo. The car was, the stereo was off. I have no idea what it was. We actually turned, I was like, could that have been I thought, because we were, right when it happened, this is what happened. We were driving along, and there was this long set of dark skid marks on the road. Right, so we're coming along, and there's this long, and I just was happening to, I was like, I notice these skid marks sometimes on roads, and you're like, what did they do to that, like, long skid mark for? And right as we're passing that, right as I say that, we hear this bam, bam, bam. And so I was like, wait a minute. Could somebody have actually gone off the road? Like, those skid marks were fresh, and somebody went off the road there, and their car was off in the bush, and they honked the horn because they heard us coming. So we actually stopped, turned around, and drove back to that spot. And there was no way, because the road, the land on the sides of the road actually went up. So we would have seen any car. But we actually looked, I mean, like, it was so strange. Like, it was just clearly this car horn sound. We're in the middle of nowhere with nobody around us.
Telling you what, man, that's that cosmic funk, dude. Strikes again.
Oh, the cosmic funk.
Bump, bump, bump. Boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom.
Mystery boom, chicka boom, boom. It's cosmic funk. I'm telling you.
Cosmic funk. But yeah, that's just one of those things that, like, we talked about it for a while. It's like, what the hell was that? And you just can't. There's no way to. There's no answers. It was definitely strange. Like, it's cool. Yeah, it was very weird. So that also reminded me of another story that I've been thinking about I should tell on the podcast. So I live in a tower, first of all, and I have a cat. Okay. So, you guys need to know that. This is important for the story.
That is an excellent way to start.
I live in a tower, and I have a cat. Basically, I'm a wizard. Okay.
It's true. I can vouch for it. I've seen it.
So the setup in the tower is I have a sliding glass door that's the only door in or out. Okay, that's the only way in or out of the tower. It's just one entrance. And I have in the corner, right next to the sliding glass door, I have my entire computer set up. So that's where I spend most of my time playing video, doing research for this podcast.
I've seen it.
So I spend a lot of time there late at night playing video games, doing research, whatever, looking at strange stuff on the internet. And my cat, one of the ways he gets my attention, because it's hard to get my attention when I'm on the computer, is he'll come up and start weaving in and out of my legs, right? And so he'll be brushing up against my legs or whatever. And that's how I know. And I'll usually just, I don't even look away from the computer because I'm playing some crazy game, and I'll just reach down and start petting him, And 2 times recently in the past month, like, I felt the brush against my legs, and I'm like, oh, kitties, and I reach down and he's not there. I'm like, what? And then I'll look down there, and he's not there. And I'm like, okay, when that happens sometimes, he'll brush against my leg and then take off, right? So it doesn't faze me. I can keep playing video games, and then I hear brunk on the door, and I look over, and he's outside. And I'm like, I let him in. I'm, not thinking. And like a little while later, I'm like, wait a minute. What just brushed against my leg? He was outside. This has happened twice recently. He brushes against my leg. Totally think it's the cat. Reach down to pet him. He's not there. Think nothing of it. Keep playing game. Cat knocks on the door from the outside. This has happened twice in the past month. And I don't know. Maybe he's bilocating. He's rubbing against my leg because he wants inside.
He's trying to build up his static charge so he can jaunt outside. And then he can't do anything to get static charge from outside, so he has to knock on the door to get in.
Yeah, and if you're wondering, how in the hell does a cat knock on the door? He's a huge cat. So he has, Maine Coon or something in his ancestry because he actually is larger than... My mom looked up the weight ranges of domestic cats, right? And he actually is above the highest weight range of domestic cats. So he's got some non-domestic feline.
Basically a Neffa cat.
Yeah, it's like
he's enormous.
Mountains in the area.
Yeah.
Befriended him.
He's enormous, and so the way he knocks on remember it's a sliding glass door, so the way he knocks on the door is he stands up on his hind legs and then he slams his 2 front paws against the door. He goes, boom. That's how he knocks on the door. And that's how he lets me know, because the door's right there and I'm playing the game and I won't see him. He'll sit there looking at me and he stares at me trying to make me look, but I won't look. And then he'll go, boonk, and I'm like, oh, hey kitties, and I'll let him in. So that's how he knocks on the door. So it's just been strange that I feel the cat brush against my legs, reach down there to pet him, nothing there, look down, he's not there, whatever, keep playing the game, and then boonk.
That's how I'm going to knock on your door from now on.
That's how everybody should knock on the door. It's the freaking Fonz knock. Yeah, so those are the two stories I've been wanting to tell on the podcast.
Okay, I went down a way different path whenever you start talking about that. So at first I was like, what if it's a ghost and it's just noticed your cat doing that and it knows your cat's outside and it just like wants to mess with you a little bit?
Yeah, I thought of that too. I mean, that was the first thought. I'm like, okay, this is something what people would call supernatural, because it's like
It's a poltergeist.
yeah.
So specifically, I was thinking of that little girl
Yeah.
who has creepily followed you around for all these years.
Yeah.
I cannot do that.
Which
I was like, what if she is just like transforming into a cat, holding on Wes's leg just to fuck with him?
It could be. It could be.
Yeah, okay. That's my thought.
Yeah. The other thing is like, and I've noticed this, and anybody listening, like, try this out. So, like, you read stories online or you read stories anywhere of people hearing strange noises in their houses, and then everybody else will chalk that up to, like, the house is settling, or the pipes, the water pipes or whatever, or something, the changing temperatures, whatever, makes the house creak, crack. But, like, I hear these popping noises, like, in my rooms or whatever. So I'm at the computer. This is where this most often happens. I'm at the computer, and I'll just hear something pop, like somebody has flicked something that's on the table behind me. It just goes thunk, and it clearly isn't part of the house because it's coming from the interior part of the room, and like, I know that, or I wonder, I guess my question is I wonder, does this happen to people and they just blow it off? They're like, well, there's something weird happened. Is the house settling or whatever. But I listen to those sounds and I'm like, what is actually making that noise? Like, what is that sound? So that's my question. Does everybody hear strange noises in their houses and then just blow them off as being the house settling or whatever? Or do you actually?
I want to say yes. That was like the only thing that saved me from completely freaking out whenever I was a little kid. It's like, it's always the house. It's always just the house creaking.
Right.
And there still sounds, like, to this day, and I think about it, it's like, was that the house? Now I'm older, I'm not 5. I can, like, actually think about what might actually be happening.
Yeah.
And I'll typically be able to, like, find some way to rationalize it.
Some way to rationalize. That's what I'm saying. So, like, when I try to rationalize them, I'm always like, what? The temperature in the house isn't changing, right? I have the temperature set at a particular temperature setting, and it stays that way. So that's not doing anything, and I haven't messed with anything in the room for a long time, so it's not stuff that I've moved around that is just like sliding down I don't have loud music booming or whatever, so that isn't like making the walls shake or whatever. So if I'm just sitting there and I've been sitting there for hours and hours doing something, then there's just this loud pop from behind me, I'm like, what is that? And like, I don't know. I find it fascinating that I think that these kind of things happen a lot, and people just chalk them up to, they just try to give it a rational explanation and just forget about it. But to me, like, when I really think about it, it's difficult for me to explain it rationally. I'm like, okay, there could be a rational explanation for this. Or I should say, there is a rational explanation for this, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And like, using whatever, normal things, like, it's not the house creaking. This house doesn't creak. It's like, that's not what happens. This house, the way it's built, it doesn't make creaking noises. It doesn't pop. So, I don't know. But I've always wondered about that.
Okay, this is something I might start doing on my dry erase board. So you get a dry erase board, and every time you hear a random noise that you would normally rationalize as, like, the house making a weird sound, you just, like, start
make a note of it
and put a tally mark.
Yeah.
And then if you hear it again, you put another tally mark. If you hear, like, a new sound and it's like, okay, I usually think that's the house, so start a new one, put a tally mark. And you start chalking them up, and then try and, I don't know, just really step back and take a look at it.
See if there's a pattern? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Pattern, or, really just think about, is this really my house?
This is really funny to me because before we started this episode, we were talking about having you on the episode, and Russ was asking me, like, wasn't there some other stuff you were wanting to ask Brenner about on the podcast? And I was like, well, one of the things was he has this way of where he just breaks everything down like into categories, and then he gets it all listed out, and then he takes a step back and looks at it and starts seeing patterns. That's like exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
First off, go get a whiteboard.
First off, get a whiteboard. And then start making tally marks on the whiteboard, and then take a step back later and look at it and look for
But
patterns.
he's like, you hear a certain type of sound, and you start that category in that
Right.
column.
Yeah. Clicking noise near the breakfast table. Yeah. Popping sound near the
Yeah, and then
bathroom.
all of a sudden you hear like a bell moving around your house. And
Yeah.
that's a whole new category, which was the like I just got the chills thinking about that story a second ago when you're
Oh yeah, the
started
bells.
thinking about ghosts in your house.
Yeah. Yeah, we should play that sound on the podcast sometime.
Yeah, so Russ recorded this strange bell sound that he heard in his house, and he starts talking to it in the recording. He's like, it's like,
It's definitely not my house.
yeah. And the bell is making this one type of sound, and then he's like, and then it stops, and he's like, are you still there? Ding, 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 ding,
Yeah, it's
ding,
like,
ding,
Jesus
ding.
Christ,
It
that
was
was
like
loud.
so loud. We're like, oh. Yeah, that was a freaky recording.
Yeah, I still have that somewhere.
Because I remember you played it for me when I was sitting in your house, where you were sitting when you heard it. And
Yeah.
you were able to like point out. It's like, okay, here's the recording. Play it, and it's like, okay, yeah, that one sounded like it was like right over there.
Yeah.
And then you hear the ding again. It's like louder or softer. And you're like, yeah. Then it sounded like it was right there, and right there, and then all of a sudden it's outside, and then it walks away, or like you can
Yeah.
hear it.
Well,
outside
and
right
I was able to explain, like, so I got up and walked over into the hallway because it sounded like maybe it was coming from back there, and you can hear that. You can hear me moving around in the recording, you know. And then like I was like, "Are you still there?" And then bling, bling, like right after I said it, it happened really loudly right after that. And I was like, "Oh my god!" That was like sounded like it was right next to my ear. Yeah, and then it made this final noise that sounded like it was like receding off into the distance very quickly, like out through the wall, you know. It was a very strange, and that's never happened again either, you know. So maybe I do.
I'm getting like residual goosebumps from that.
All right, yeah, but I'm gonna go ahead and do my best to derp some of this stuff.
No way it was the house, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, so really, this is not really a skirp derp, but this will just help any of you out there that are wanting to eliminate the things that are your house.
Yeah.
So, the creaking, for example, if your house is framed out of wood, your roof gets hot during the day, during the sunlight, and then cools down at night. It doesn't matter if the temperature inside stays the same.
Yeah.
So, the wood will cool and contract, but it's got this resistance on the surfaces that are pushed together and held together by the nails, and all the boards are twisted and they want to be in a different place. So they'll be under stress, and as that stress grows, as the building
Or changes.
cools,
Yeah.
then finally a board will just move. And once it begins to move, then it moves all the way.
Right.
And so it makes a, you know,
Right.
like,
A popping noise.
yeah. But the other things are like the AC system has multiple different things in it. Like there's certain types of relays and stuff that actually make loud clicking noises.
Yeah.
And they're like, it may be a few minutes after the fan turns off, you'll hear like this dang come from the AC system.
Yeah.
Because it's actually like this electrical component that has some type of timer relay switch, spring-loaded switch in it that's screwed to the sheet metal outside of the air duct that goes up, you know, the whole thing that encases the AC.
Yeah.
So when that switch clicks, it's like bang, makes this
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
bang noise.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But you would think that you had heard that before if you've been living in a house for a while.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying. Be
Yeah.
surprised.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times it will be happening. Well, this is what I'm talking about. Not a one-off, but certain noises that you've heard multiple times but you can't find out where it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's also return air ducts that have automatic, like little this open and closing hatch that's electrically controlled on some kind of weird sensor. So that can just randomly shut depending on the humidity or something going on in the AC system after it's off.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, there's just all kinds of weird shit like that. That's all I'm saying.
Right, and those are
So you
all
gotta
like,
eliminate those.
Yeah.
And like expansion in the plumbing.
Yes.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah,
Like,
so if somebody elsewhere in the house turns on hot water somewhere, and that hot water is just to move from the hot water heater through the pipes will expand, and they're held by metal straps a lot of times through the walls. And
yeah, or
everything.
plastic, like
Or
the
plastic.
little plastic straps that are on a nail.
Yeah, and that usually will make a sort of a clicking that is timed. Tick, 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 tick. You'll hear this because the pipe is like expanding as the hot water goes through it, and it's moving all along its length. And I recognize that sound because I turn on the hot water somewhere in the house, and I can hear the pipes doing that.
Yeah.
So I know what that is. But
You guys ever get a squirrel in your walls? I have. At first you think it's the house, but then you realize it's a squirrel.
nope.
All right, yeah.
I live in a tower. Squirrels don't get in the walls.
yeah, those walls are 1 foot thick, full of concrete.
That's right. If the squirrel is in there, he's been in there since we built it, and he's dead. He will. Hopefully, he made an awesome fossil face because he's going to be there forever. But I did.
Also, there are randomly birds
Yeah.
and large bugs that hit the windows.
Yes.
So you got to keep that in mind.
Right. Now that I also recognize. You're sitting there just doing whatever, and bam! Holy crap! Yeah. And then there's like the symbol of God on the window. The bird with its wings spread out. Clearly, the Holy Ghost just came into this house. That actually happened, and I showed Kyle and Ty. We were hanging out up there, and I was like, "You guys got to see this." And I took them into the main house, which is down from the tower. And I went outside and shined my light through because it was night. I shined my light through this window, and there's this perfect like God symbol on the from a bird running into the like face planting into the window with its wings spread, and you can see this perfect like it looks like a Christian symbol of God or whatever. This dove,
Like the dove.
yeah, it's with its wings spread out and arcing upwards. Where it slammed against the window and just left that mark on the window. But you can't see it.
Did you leave it?
Oh yeah, because you can't see it unless there's light coming through it. And like I noticed it one day. I was down there. It's in the kitchen. I was down there one day. I was making a sandwich or whatever.
It's like
And
sunset.
The sun was going down. I looked up. And it's like, oh! It's like God is like on the window. It's awesome.
It's all about those subtle decorations. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It made me have a spiritual moment.
While you were having a
something
PB&J.
PB&J and spiritual moment. That's right. I had an epiphany at PB&J. Yeah. So, I recognize those noises, and I just because I'm like, okay, that's pipes clicking or whatever. But when it sounds like it's coming from the inside of the room, like I have a light
That's
table.
what, yeah.
Yeah, I have a light table, and there's like stuff all over the light table, and it sounds like something like just like somebody was standing over there and they flicked something on the light table, like they just popped it with their finger. That's what it sounds like, and I'm like, what was that?
So here was my thought. So Kyle, you started talking about the possible skirp derps for the house noises.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if one of those normal noises suddenly hit at an anomalous frequency, like some sound that it normally doesn't make, and that frequency just so happens to work perfectly with your table. Meaning your table completely absorbs that sound, muting it else, and then causes something to make noise somewhere in your table.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but that was my first thought.
Hey, it could happen. The other thing that is likely, there's a shelf above that table, and maybe there was like a BB on it. And the vibrations in the room from the cat banging on the window, and the sound from your video game.
The cat on the outside the door.
And you like tapping your foot on the floor while you're playing the video game, just like this BB just rolls off onto the table. It's just like, tack!
Yeah. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good skirp derp right there.
So yeah, I can skirp derp him, but really the point is like I'm trying to help you guys eliminate like the possibilities so that you know what's going on when other people try to skirp derp.
Right.
Oh yeah, like I still think it's a ghost, but
I don't have any BBs.
Well, you were talking about getting a whiteboard and
Tallying
and
things up,
categorize
yeah.
these things. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you do that, you should make sure you understand what type of AC you have and all of the components inside and what types of noises and when they are made.
I mean, like that would be the ultimate goal. You start figuring out like what they all are,
Yeah.
just like working through it.
Well, and I definitely have gone through the whole like my AC is making crazy noises. You remember that? Like when it would shift into winter and I would start using the heater because it does both. You turn the heater on, and then a few seconds before the whole system turns on, it starts to yell. It starts squealing. It goes, and I was like, what the actual M is that? And it happened every time. I would be sitting there playing the computer or whatever, and then there was this noise. And I'm like, what is that?
Every time you turn it on?
Like every time it starts to turn on.
Yeah.
Like I just have the heating on, and then like before it comes on, it starts to make this crazy squealing. It sounds like something is breaking or destroy. And it's clearly coming from the unit. And I actually recorded the sound.
Doing it?
Yeah, it still does it. Yeah.
Oh, so you know what? That happens in my truck, and it's really weird because it's a new truck. It's 2017. But the first thing I noticed in it, like getting it, day 2 or whatever, it's all quiet turn on. The AC it sounds like some like screeching directly from hell.
Yeah.
Like coming out of somewhere deep inside the engine.
Yes.
And it gets louder, and then it suddenly sounds like a normal AC. But there was a moment there when I had a moment in my new truck. When
You're about to be
wasn't
taken
really
directly
sure.
to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually recorded the sound because at the time I was living there and the rest of the family was gone. So I actually recorded the sound and sent it to Dad because I was like, dude, what is this? And he listened to it and he was like, I have no idea what that is. So I sent it to the people that installed the unit, sent it to Kamak, and he listened to it and he was like, I have no idea what that is. So I've never been able to get anybody to answer what the hell that noise is. So I don't know.
I'd like to answer that. I want to go listen to it.
You're so good at answers, bro.
Yeah, I can totally play it for you. Just turn on the heater and like it waits a little while, and then when it's right before the whole system clicks on and the fan starts going or whatever, you hear this crazy wind up. It sounds like gears are grinding. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It makes this insane noise. It's difficult to explain. Maybe I'll get a recording of it and we can play it on the show because it is wild sounding. And then what's also weird, as I know, this doesn't happen all the time, but after it shuts off, and it's been shut off for a while, it'll sit there and it'll go.
Yeah, see, that's what I was
It's
thinking.
some kind of pressure
It
thing.
sounds like because when you turn on the heater, it's actually the whole fluid motion is in reverse to what it is in the AC.
Yeah.
So your high pressure side is on the inside of the house and your low pressure side is on the outside. So you can imagine the low pressure side is where it's got to go through this tiny little orifice and it's just blowing out into a gas outside.
Yeah.
And then it's getting recompressed and shoved, compacted, being shoved into the interior where you are. So like when you're running AC, there might be a similar noise on the outside when the fluid is being compressed into that outside chamber. If there's any air bubble or
Yeah.
if there's, because
Because it is a heat pump, so it just reverses.
yeah, it just reverses the cycle, and like sometimes, depending on the way it's set up, you can have gas coming back in to the high pressure side, or fluid going out to the low pressure side, where it should, one side should be mostly gas and the other side should be mostly liquid.
Yeah.
So if there's some gas in there with the liquid going through that orifice,
Right, it'll start whistling, basically.
yeah, making some
Like,
crazy noises.
like the Powerade bottle nozzles. Full like, you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Talk about
Yeah, that
nipples.
Powerade bottle nipples,
I have no idea.
the ones that you
Like
twist.
gas getting squeezed through those into a different systems.
Yeah. Just imagine you're running out of ketchup. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like it's running out of ketchup.
But it would if the ketchup was under like
lot of
375 psi.
And there was a whole lot of it.
That's right.
Yeah, because it'll make this noise for many seconds before it starts up. And it ramps up, too. It gets louder and louder and changes in tone
Yeah.
and sort of does this spiraling.
So it's almost like it's pushing whatever air pockets are left inside your interior out and
Yeah.
they're going out through the orifice into the outside system.
So maybe it just needs to be recharged.
Maybe.
Because it didn't used to do that. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't do this, and then all of a sudden it started one day, and it just was like, I was like, what the hell? I thought the thing was trying to destroy it.
Or the orifice could be like a little jammed up. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys should have just like an entire episode on like air conditioning systems. It was like every time I talk to both of you about air conditioning systems, it feels like I learned something new.
The other
It's
thing,
like Kyle with you hitting all the deer.
Yeah. I've had to learn a lot about air
Having
conditioning
crazy
systems.
systems.
yeah.
Now my refrigerator's going out, so I'm learning all about that.
Also, that AC system, the AC itself stopped working one time. Like, it would come on, and it was blowing air and everything, and it just got hotter and hotter in the house. And I was like, what the hell? And it was night. And I called Dad. And I was like, dude, what's the deal? You know, he's like, well, go check the outside unit and make sure that it's coming on too. And so when the next time the AC kicked on, I went outside on the deck, and the big unit on the outside was not turning on. So I went down there in the dark with my headlamp on, and I unscrewed the cover and pulled the whole cover off, and there were stars in there. Like, when I turned my headlamp off, there were stars in the electrical component part, and it was billions of ants, all crawling up onto the to the part where the electricity contacts come in and burning in tiny little bright flashes. And they were piled up around it to the point to where the solenoid couldn't close. So it was trying to close the solenoid, but the ants were just like, and there were just there was a huge ball of them on it. And I was like, what are you guys doing? Stop killing yourselves on my AC system.
Electricity.
No, that's the weird thing. So that happened to me last year, and like nobody could figure out like what was going on with the air conditioner until one dude came out, and he checks. He was like, "Okay, I think I know what it is." And he walks over to it, and sure enough, same thing. Like ants going for the contacts.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, man, I got this. I'll clean it up. I'm gonna replace this thing or whatever. I'm gonna kill all these ants." And it was like in the middle of the summer, and he was saying this. He was like, "This keeps happening. There's something about the current that these ants love, and nobody understands why, but it's happening, and I hate it because it's driving me crazy. Because he's just like having to deal with it at all these people's houses."
Yeah, and it's never happened since then. Like, I didn't do anything to prevent ants from getting in there. I shut off the AC system, turned off the breaker, cleaned them all off of there, and then put the cover back on, and when I turned it on, it worked. And they've never gotten back in there again. So it's like one of them gets in there and dies, and that somehow lets out pheromones that they all start coming to it. I don't know. It may just be by happenstance. Like, one of them dies, and they all start trying to come to find out what killed that ant. And fight it, and they just start dying like crazy.
You remember the story that I told about the cat that went and like shut the power off to the entire city by getting these two? I wonder if the same thing happens with cats. Like, they had to get that cat out of there quick.
Yeah.
Because like all the rest of the
cats are going to show up and try to kill whatever's killing that cat. Yeah, it's like a feline emergency. Something took all 9 lives of that cat in less than a second. We need to go kill that thing right now, all of us. So I looked down there, and there's literally like thousands of ants. I mean, they made a huge ball to the point where the solenoid couldn't shut, and I could see little stars. Like, when I turned my headlamp off, they were still crawling onto it and burning alive. You know, that's crazy. Like, I think what I assumed is that they were going to try to kill whatever was killing them and dying in turn. Like, it was a, you know, so
It was a massive war that they were losing.
right. They could not win.
Just keep going.
So I probably saved the rest of those ants' lives by cleaning that situation up, so they would stop going up there and dying on the contacts. But I don't know.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was some type of weird morphic resonance thing going on all over the. When was this happening to you, Brenner?
So this was
Last year, you said, right?
July 2017, last year.
Yeah, for me it was years and years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's just interesting that it's never happened since. So I assumed that an ant had gotten up in there and died. Yeah, and then they all were going up there to find out what killed it and dying in turn, and it just kept going because, you know.
Or maybe, yeah.
But it's strange that the guy told me that it was just happening all over the place in Austin, and it was like just driving him crazy because he was having to deal with that like every day, just like killing ants.
Yeah.
House to house killing ants. And he was like, I don't know what it is, but there's something about like these specific contacts on the solenoid that they just like go for.
Yeah.
So then I went into the electric universe. I immediately just started like brainstorming anything I could think of. It's like, how could this possibly be happening? Like, what is an ant? Like, never figured it out. I let it go. Moved on.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be electric universe. I don't know. They might all want to go die on the sun, and they just can't get there. And so when they find these contacts, they're like, yes, let's go die in the fire.
Well, one of their slogans is everything's electric. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it was.
Yep.
I'm sure it was.
It was just really cool. I mean, like, I know that they were dying in mass, but when I turned my headlamp off and it was in the dark, I
You
could
sicko.
It was full. It was like I was like, straight up 2001 Space Odyssey. I was like, my AC is full of stars. Right? My God, it's full of stars. This is the last line from that movie. All right. That's it for this segment. We're going to come back, and I promise we're going to talk about 72 when we come back.
Oh, shit. We still haven't talked about that?
No, we haven't. We're going to next time.
Not
That was
again.
the last time
Yeah.
we tried.
72 reasons to listen to this podcast. Somewhere out there. Brothers and Circle podcast coming back to talk about 72 on episode 72.
Heck yeah. So, I wanted to start this whole 72 thing off with there are 72 ounces of beer in a six-pack. And I'm starting number one. Right now.
That's a good one.
That is good. That is good. And of course, beers come in groups of 12 or 6.
That's right.
Right? So they're always like,
It's very processional.
yeah, it's very processional.
Groups of 12 with 12 ounces or 6 with 12 ounces.
Yeah.
So that's another thing is that the average height of a male man is 6 feet, which is 72 inches.
Yeah.
6 times 12.
Mailman or
A mailman.
The average height of a mailman.
A mailman. I'm sorry, did I say a male man?
Yes.
Oh, it's so
no,
21st century.
a mailman.
It's like posthumously. The average height of a male man.
Well, what about liquid water, man? I know, I do that all the time. So.
Just making sure you get the concept.
What I meant was human. I'm sorry, not a male man. A man as in human.
A
That's what I
human.
meant.
Yeah. Yeah. So, who was I? Was it Manly P. Hall that was talking about the dozen? And he was saying, like, go to a baker and ask him for a decan of donuts, and he will not know what the hell you're talking about. But that's 10, right? Usually it's 10. But if you say you want a dozen, that's exactly, he knows that. And this is a very ancient thing that bread has always been dealt with in dozens, and their gross is 144 or something.
Yeah. Bread and eggs.
Yeah. Bread, eggs come in dozens, bread. Yeah. So beers also come in dozens.
So, as far as like humans go, 72 degrees on the Fahrenheit scale is the comfortable temperature.
Yeah. Room temperature.
Room temperature.
Yeah.
That's one of the many reasons I like the Fahrenheit scale. You metric bitches.
Yeah, what was the argument you were having with Felix?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kept trying to tell
He
you.
was nailing me hard though. I couldn't think of anything. We were in Europe together, and he was just like, everything we did. If we were drinking beer, he was pointing out to me how badass the metric system was for figuring out what you're doing with your beer. I'm just like, dang it! And then whenever we went somewhere, he was like, see, it's just this way and this way, and it's like, it all makes perfect sense. And I was like, yeah, but ancient stuff having to do with procession. Couldn't come up with anything.
Yeah. Well,
another human one is the average heart rate or
Right.
pulses. So 72 beats per minute.
Yeah, is the heart rate at rest? right?
Yeah, exactly. So I started wearing a Fitbit while back.
A what?
I've been Fitbit.
Okay.
Little thing. So now they make Fitbits that can track your heart rate. I mean, it syncs or checks every 10 seconds, something like that.
Yeah.
But I found out I was like in a kick-ass Zen mode at rest. My beats per minute would be 72.
Oh, wow.
Like on the number too, like not 71. Not
But only if
73,
it's
not
72
averaging
degrees
72. It would be
Fahrenheit.
like 72.
But only if it's 72 degrees Fahrenheit can you actually really be in a Zen moment at rest.
Yeah,
If it's
yeah.
too
I mean,
cold, you
close.
just can't really get there. If it's too hot, can't
Yeah.
get
Yep.
It's got to be 72 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah. And that's also, isn't that the close to the temperature that it is underground?
Yeah.
Between 68 and 72
Yep.
is like the average temperature in
in a
underground
cave
caverns.
or in a cellar.
Right. And that's fascinating because that's the perfect temperature to, and we're learning this because of our jobs, to let a wine age in barrels. Like 72 degrees is 68, 72 degrees is great. This is why they used to use limestone caverns for storing wine barrels to age in the barrels.
Yeah, and depending on the region, like they'll get colder. But I think it's just in general, or on average. I don't know how they figure out the average temperature of caves, but
Well, I don't think that it does get colder or warmer. Like, unless it's an ice cavern, it doesn't matter where you are. Once you get deep enough underground, it's the same temperature.
Like everywhere
Yeah.
on Earth.
Yes. This is why caves in cold regions make like clouds of steam are coming out of them. Yeah, because they're warm in there, like comparative to the outside. But temperature control underground is like once you get
yeah, okay. So you could go into a cave that had live water in it, and that water might be extremely cold. Having to do certain things.
Yeah, so now there's a concept of
Or hot springs, etc.
yeah. Right. There's a spring cellar used to be like people would use a spring cellar, like the concept of a root cellar, because it's always the same temperature, like roughly the same temperature in a root cellar. You dig it down and it's just in the roots. But there's
Oh, you
also
mean like a real root cellar, not like an air quote root cellar?
right now like a real root cellar. No air quotes. Like you dig it, you're in amongst the roots of all the plants, and you do that because before we had AC, that was it kind of remained the same temperature. But there was also, I can't remember if spring cellar was what it was called, but it was something like that, where if there was like an underground spring, it was always colder in there because of the water, because the water would be really cold coming up from deep underground often. And so they would use that, and the closer to the spring itself that you got, the colder it was. So and there was also evaporation happening. So people would use that to keep things cool.
Yep.
A spring house, maybe is what they called it, or something like that. You basically like enclose the spring itself, and the air in there will be much cooler than the outside. Yeah.
So would one of those like blender caves have to be one of those for it to work? Yeah. I couldn't think of what they were called.
The hypogeum?
Hypogeum, yeah. So like,
Blender cave.
I remember looking at the pictures of the Hypogeum. They always had the running water running right over them, and then the shafts that run all the way up, and then the outlets from all the shafts making the levels.
Yes. Yeah, so there's air shafts and everything. Like you're talking about like Darren QU, these underground cities that the Varas possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have a water source deep beneath, way down below the bottom level, or in the bottom level, so that the Hypogeum itself has rooms that have this river running past it, or whatever. Yeah. And then there's air shafts.
That's my dream. That's
dream house.
life goals.
Bucket list, build a Vara. All right, so what were some of the other 72 stuff you had looked up?
Wait a second. The Watcher is pointing out, he pulled this up. Caves. Okay. A cave's temperature will vary based on airflow or of surface air. However, in chambers where there is little to no airflow, the temp stays between 68 and 72 degrees.
Okay.
So yeah, the temperature underground is basically 72 degrees.
Right,
folks.
all the time. Once you get below like the frost level, and of course the farther north you go, the deeper the frost line will get beneath the ground, because the ground freezes deeper and deeper down. But once you get below that, it's the same temperature all the time.
Yep.
So like I know, like when I lived up north, when people are building foundations for houses, state codes require them to dig below what is considered to be the deepest frost level to put the foundation pillars in, so that they're not, because otherwise you have frost heaving.
Yeah.
The freezing the freezing and melting of the ground will push things up and down. Like, so that frost heaves in the roads are common up there, where these giant boulders from underground like surface during the winter and make the roads incredibly bumpy, and they have to completely redo them.
Yeah.
So when you're building a house, you have to dig the foundations below that frost level and pour the concrete in there so that it won't move up and down as the temperatures change.
Yeah. But this is going back to the Fahrenheit. This is why, one of the many reasons why I love the Fahrenheit system. Like, for some reason, the guy he set his range of numbers that have these strange connections to all this ancient stuff,
Yeah.
like this weird numerology. So it's like sacred geometry. Like the temperature of frozen water is 32 degrees, and the temperature of the boiling point of water is 212, and the difference between those two is 180 degrees.
Yeah.
So in terms of geometry, it's like
It's 180 degrees
180
around.
degrees the other way. And then there's this weird thing, like the average human body temperature is 98.6, and the difference between that and the freezing temperature of water is 66.6 degrees. It's just cool. That's why I'm like, that guy was a genius. I'm gonna stick to that. Screw you, Celsius bitches.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
All right. So anyway,
No, that's cool. I knew that there was interesting numbers in that. I was going to ask you what those were, because the other parts.
yeah, and like, okay, so you could say that the thaw point of water is 33 degrees.
Right.
Right, but 32 is also a sacred number
Yeah.
in ancient weird mythology and numerology.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I mean 72 is the most common number used now, but 71 is also, like, sometimes in ancient texts you'll come across 71, and that's because the actual number is like 71.6. So it can be either one depending on how you round it, right? 71.6 is the actual number. So it's commonly said as 72, but the real number is 71.6. So sometimes you'll see 71, sometimes you'll see 72. But more commonly you see 72, but I have come across 71 in there, and it's still a processional number.
all right, so Brenner, you have a list of 72s?
Yeah, I've got a short list. Go through a
72
list
long?
of 72 and pick some out. Okay, so 72 is the sum of 4 consecutive primes, 13, 17, 19, and 23. As well as the sum of 6 consecutive primes. So 5, 7, 11, 13. It's my birthday, November 13th. 17 and 19. The product of 8 and 9 is 72. So 8 and 9, which is a chronic number, which I'm not 100% sure what that is. I remember looking it up right before we started the show and understood it, but I already forgot it, so I'm going to let it go.
So I just did this on the fly, but that first set of primes that you gave,
Yeah.
13, 17, 19, and 23, if you add all of those digits up together, it's 27. Which is
Oh, okay.
72 backwards.
Right.
Oh.
Just add the digits
Feeling
up.
coming.
1 plus 3 plus 1 plus 7 plus 1 plus 9 plus 2 plus 3
Oh, wow.
is 27.
It's 27. And then if you add those together, you get 9. And every
You
processional
add
number
those
ends
together.
in 9.
That's right. It's just weird, man.
It is weird.
Yeah, so 27 is another number that I always look at just because it's 72 backwards.
Yeah, it's Paimon.
Paimon principle of 72.
right.
Every rock star.
Dies at 27. Right. All right, what else?
All right, so okay, so I really like the big ones. The mass of the moon is 1/72nd that of the Earth, and the volume of Saturn is 72 times that of the Earth.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All coincidences, folks. See the
Giant
cards.
coincidences, or its resonance.
But okay, so the biggest one, I guess, is the axis of the Earth. So the whole 1 degree every 72 years.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where procession comes in. That's where everyone gets confused.
Right. So 72 is important. We think that it was important to the ancients because it is like the basic number of procession and the processional cycle.
It's the processional day, basically.
Yes,
72 years.
Yeah, one processional day. They call it the Great Year. And so, I always view procession as being within wheels, because we have all these astronomical cycles. So you have the day cycle, the day and night cycle, basically, the 24-hour cycle, which is caused by one wheel, which is the Earth rotating around its axis. And then the next wheel is the annual cycle of the Earth going around the sun, and that takes 1 year. And then the next cycle out is the precessional cycle, which takes 25,920 years, which is 72. If 72 times 360 equals 25,920. So and like the ancients used to consider what they called the divine year or the sacred year. They considered to have 360 days, and so the great year also has 360 days, which to us are 72 years long. So
Yeah. So the reason why it's basically that you got 360 degrees in the circle of the rotation of the axis, the full circle.
yeah,
And every 72 years, that axis rotates 1 degree of arc.
right.
So, and then I've heard it said, like Randall Carlson made the point that 72 years is a pretty good average on the human lifespan. Now that has changed throughout history based on circumstances of people's lives and their environment. And Russ, you were pointing out that when you figure like the infant mortality rates
Yeah.
in there, because when we didn't years ago, when we didn't have all this badass medical technology, like the infant mortality rate was much higher, which if you figure that in to the average,
drops the average lifespan way
That's
down.
right.
Yeah. So if you take out the infant mortality rate of ancient peoples, their average lifespans like skyrocket up to close to 72, just like modern ones do today.
Yeah.
So
Whoa.
Take care.
yeah. So it's kind of, it's not a fallacy, but it's incorrect to say that ancient peoples just lived till 20 years old, or 30 years old and then died. That's their average lifespan, but that's when you include the infant mortality rate. So many people died as an infant that it drops the average lifespan of everybody down to the 40s or 30s.
Really, when I
That
think
makes
about
me think of. Sorry, go for it, Kyle.
I was just thinking of the idea of the average lifespan of a human being not so much based on calculating or figuring all the people and how long they lived and died, because hundreds of thousands of people marched off to war and were killed as
Right.
young adults. It's almost, to me, I look at it as like the typical healthy human life, as long as you weren't murdered.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But I'd be willing to bet that would shift the balance. So the first thing I thought of was the Aztec. So their idea that so I might be just making up memories right now, but my takeaway from maybe even hearing you guys talk about it was just like population balance, like how it came down to sacrifice lots and lots of people to avoid
The end of the world?
other terrible thing. Yeah, end of the world, but just like other means of controlling the population.
Oh, yeah.
Or maintaining that balance.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So, like, if the average got above 72, they're like, kill a bunch of people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a bit hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to keep the average lifespan 72, start slaughtering thousands of people to drop it back down.
I prefer to stick with the resonance thing.
No, maybe it's related, like electric universe. All comes back.
Yeah.
Maintain a balance.
Yeah.
All right, so what else? There's the obvious. There's the 72 disciples,
Yeah.
of Jesus and the 12 apostles.
Right.
There's this constant recurrence of the 72, and they're like in so many different ancient religions or whatever, they're like whoever the prophet was or whatever had 72 followers. Like we were talking
Yeah.
about the Viracochas. They had 72 followers.
Yeah, the Alcalu, 72 followers. Yeah, the 72 Viracochas.
Yeah, and then the 72 languages of the people during the Tower of Babel incident.
Yeah.
The 72 languages that were confused.
Yeah.
What else?
There's also the 72 forms of transformation that was taught to the Monkey King by the sky serpent, the dragon. And once the monkey had learned the 72 forms of transformation, the dragon said that he was now the finder of secrets. So the number
Was that Abu?
that was Sun Wang King or something. I think the Watcher pulled this name up for me before. I can never remember. I called him Hanuman, but that's the Indian name for the same monkey god or whatever. But I think that this is from the Chinese legend, and I think his name was Sun Wang King or something like that. But he was.
Oh, no. I was thinking of the cartoon movie Aladdin.
Yeah, Abu.
Yeah.
I associated with him. I associated with
you
him.
mentioned it.
Yeah, I did. I associated the monkey with Abu because it was Sun Wukong. I was close. Sun Wang King. Sun Wukong. I knew it was something like that. Sun King Kong. But yeah, I was talking about Abu, and in the Aladdin story, they go into the Cave of Wonders, and Abu is the one that cannot resist grabbing the gigantic jewel, right? Aladdin, as in this sort of mythological tale representing the more ascended or a higher version of humanity, not the monkey, is able to follow the injunction to touch nothing but the lamp, right? He is ignoring all the treasure. They walk through all this gold and jewels and giant statues made of gold and everything, and he just ignores all of it, even though he's dirt poor. And he climbs the steps to grab the lamp, and that's what he was told to do: touch nothing but the lamp. But the monkey, who is in the myths is used to represent like the more basic human nature, cannot resist. And in the Disney cartoon, the jewel that's being held, the one that he can't resist grabbing, is this gigantic ruby being held out by the monkey god. The statue itself is a monkey holding this giant ruby. And so Abu grabs it and then causes this catastrophic collapse of the cave. So that whole scene is it has incredible symbology in it. And I bet you the steps that Aladdin climbed to get to the lamp were 72 steps. I mean, it's a long stairway, and you can see it.
So there was also the Osiris coffin.
Oh, yes.
He was enclosed in a coffin by 72 disciples and accomplices of Typhon.
Right, 72 conspirators. Yeah.
It was probably 72 nails, too.
Each one had one nail, yeah.
The Chinese astrology has 36 beneficial stars and 72 malevolent stars. Their sum constitutes the sacred number 108,
Of course.
which is processional.
Yeah.
And you can think of it, 108 is also 1080,
Right.
which is 3 full rotations.
Right. And 108 is also 72 plus half of itself.
And 3 full rotations of the Earth is 72 hours.
Yeah.
Wait. How is 108 180?
It's
Because zeros are placeholders. So you'll see processional number, like 120 is also 12. Right.
Yeah.
And so like anytime you can remove or add zeros as much as you want.
720 is 2.
So weird.
720 is 2 full circles.
So sometimes they're directly applicable, but they also, since a zero is just a placeholder, you can just ignore the zeros and you'll see the processional number in there. It's like 144,000, which is included in many myths, is actually 144, which is a processional number.
Yeah, 12 times
Yeah.
12, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
144 is also 72 times 2, or 72, or I'm sorry, yeah, 72 plus 72 is 144.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and you'll also see like another very common processional number is 4320. And that's actually 2 processional ages added together. So the number of years in one processional age is 2,160, right? And that's not as easy to remember as 4320. So you'll see 432 and then any number of zeros followed after that. Like 1 year of Brahma is 4,300,000,000, so on and so forth. 320 million years or something like that. Like when you look at the Hindu idea of some of the Yuga stuff, when they get into the millions of years, every single number is processional. It just has tons of zeros added onto the end of it.
Yeah. And once again, like all these weird numbers, if you just add the digits up, you just get the sum of the digits of the number, it usually equals 9.
Right.
Well, pretty much almost always. 108, 72, 360,
Yeah.
25,920
Equals 18.
Equals 18, and then 1 plus 8
is 9.
It's
Yeah. They always equal 9. It's crazy.
weird. Or it equals 27, like those 4 primes.
Yeah.
The product of those 4 primes that equals 72. If you add them up, it equals 27, and the sum of those two numbers is 9.
9. Yeah.
Has
we were just
anyone
talking
ever identified like the K factor for all these coincidences with the number 72?
What's the K factor?
So K factor is the level of coincidence. So a K
Like
factor of
how
one is just
improbable
like-
it is? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So K factor of 1 is just like, you know, that's obviously just, you know, a minor coincidence, blah blah. And then you get up to K factor 2, and that's a, you know, least or less probable coincidence. And then you get up to like 4 and 5 and stuff like that, and it's like there's no way.
Okay.
Absolutely no way. That
So it's like
can
a logarithmic progression or whatever? Like a K factor
Yeah.
of 4 is incredibly improbable? Okay.
So, I bet somebody's looked at it before.
Yeah, I don't know. I do know that, like, some mathematicians have looked at this and said that it's the same as the problem with the you know, what they call the God numbers, these fundamental numbers that define how the universe works. The probability of those happening... Huh? What?
Number 2.
The probability of those happening by chance is so infinitesimal that it's basically impossible. Right. And that's just 6 numbers. But they're so clearly defined to so many decimal places that you can, if you just change them very, very slightly, the entire universe stops working like it does. It becomes something entirely different. And so all 6 of those numbers being this precise, this calibrated, is basically completely improbable. It's like, you know, there's an infinitesimal chance. The same thing has been done on the you know, the quote-unquote coincidence of all these numbers being built into the Great Pyramid. Like, actual mathematicians who understand what probability means have looked at this and they're like, there's no way that this is by chance. It's so improbable that, you know, and being mathematicians, they are qualified to comment on probability and what that means. They're like, no, this cannot be by chance. This has to be designed into it. And the same.
What?
Go
What
ahead.
was the documentary that I watched a documentary you sent me one time?
The Revelation of the
they
Pyramids?
talked about the math in the pyramids.
Yeah, the revelation of the pyramids.
I just remember at one point in time I got like exhausted from like all the
The scriptards?
popping up. Like, oh, I can't take it anymore.
Oh, you mean the numbers?
Yeah, like all the weird coincidences and
Yeah.
all the relationships between all the measurements.
Yes. Yeah, there's one part in there where, because they go through it for a while and they're showing you how phi is in there and how pi is in there, and then finally the guy is just holding a pyramid shape and he's showing you how the height divided by the width is this, and just goes over, like naming off all these things off in a row, and you're just like, oh my god, there's so many of them. Yeah.
Oh, that was the other thing. I'm still thinking about 72s.
Yeah.
The 72 Demons of Solomon. Did I mention that?
No, you didn't mention that. That's right.
Yeah.
72 demons of Solomon.
Yep. And then the percentage of water of which the human body is composed.
Oh yeah.
72%.
Yeah, see, we're having trouble with this, folks, because we actually already did this.
Yeah.
And and we can't remember.
But we're doing it better this time.
Yeah, but we can't remember, did we do this again? Because it's hard to remember if we've done it, because I'm like, we did that. But no, wait, we haven't done it again. So yeah.
So wait, something I didn't realize last time. Kyle, you just mentioned that Osiris, the 72 demons, and there was one that I read from that, like one of the websites I was looking at. So, Linane mentions the 72 intelligences governing the 72 zodiacal terms according to the Cabal.
Oh wow, that one I hadn't heard.
72
And I don't even know
intelligences.
exactly what that means.
72
but-
intelligences governing the.
Yes.
The what?
Governing the 72
Zodiacal.
zodiacal terms according to the Cabal.
Wow.
And
That one's fascinating. Oh, yeah, and there was the 72
Take care.
letters in the name of God.
Yeah, the name of God is composed of 72 letters according to the Kabbalistic tradition. It comes from the mystical text called the Shema Mafarash
that was pretty good.
of the Exodus. Chapter 14, verses 19, 20, and 21, of which one is composed of 72 letters in the original Hebraic text. Hebraic, yeah, sorry. It is this ineffable name of God who murmured the great priest in the middle of the shouts of the crowd. It was replaced later by the sacred name Yahweh, which is YHWH, which is Sumerian. Then the Kabbalah is pronounced by spelling them one after the other. Yod, He, Wow, He. It is also by extraction and transposition of the 3 verses of the Shemaforash that Kabbalists deduce the names of the 72 spirits or angels of the Cabal, which they call the explained divine names. So I think
The 72 demons were
Yes.
just like one letter.
they're
of
angels.
being.
They were angels, basically. They were
Yeah.
the fallen.
So, okay, one thing I'm thinking of, like, I think one of the sentences that this person wrote was just terrible.
Yeah, I was noticing.
So it's like, it is the ineffable name of God whom murmured the great priest. So the great priest murmurs the 72-letter name of God.
Right,
In the middle of the shouts of the crowd.
Which was
And-
Abalamahalamajalamahalamajalamahalatandra. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it was. But,
There was an old science fiction story that I read that had an alien in it whose name was Abalamahalamalandra, and it was incredibly long, and it took me forever to figure out how to say it, because like when you saw it on the page, it was a little paperback book, and the name actually took up the entire line on the page. Abalamahalamalandra. It was very long, and so whenever there's been a really long name, that's what I always think of as Abalamahalamajalamahalatandra.
That may have been the name of God.
Well, supposedly anybody, if the other myths I've seen about this whole name of God is that it's unknown. And there was actually, I can't remember where this came from, but there was this idea that people have been searching for the name of God for thousands of years, and that the purpose of the universe was for God's name to be discovered by something other than God and spoken aloud. And then that would be the completion of the universe's purpose and thus the end of the universe.
Yeah, because I feel like I've heard a lot of myths and stories where it's like, you don't say the name of God.
That's right. That's right. So we're not going to say it, and it's not about Tandra. So, but we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back for the last segment and continue talking about 72.
And we're back with 72 guests in the 72nd segment of the 72nd episode of the 72nd Brothers of the Serpent. Episode 72.
I'm still waiting for episode 7-4. It's not a processional number, it's not special, but I still want to be able to say it. 7-4.
Yeah. Whenever somebody asks you for your phone number,
Yeah.
7-4.
And just stop.
That's it. Oh, old prank calls will eventually put on the podcast.
Yeah. I think it was the credit card number she's actually like, what's the credit card number?
Yeah.
7-4. I'm sorry, sir, what was it? 7-4.
Okay, so we are going to try one more time to give a description of procession.
Yeah.
To the best of our ability. It's really hard when you don't have graphics or
Yes.
a way to draw it. Like, I've figured out The easiest way to explain it to somebody is to actually take a stick and draw things into dirt and grab rocks and start to illustrate it. It really makes sense that way.
Yeah.
I've got a pretty good method, but trying to do it without graphics just by spoken word is very difficult. And what we were talking about is that there's really two ways you can go about it. And one is, what is precession from the perspective of a person standing on Earth, or the viewpoint from Earth?
Yeah.
The other is
What is actually
happening
in the bigger picture of all the astronomical bodies.
right.
Yeah.
And they're
totally different, even though, so you have to explain both of them to really get the concept across.
right. So if you imagine yourself on a bowling ball when somebody is rolling it down the lane, what are you going to see? Right? As opposed to you standing there watching the bowling ball go down the lane.
Right.
They're completely different things. So if you ever want to watch what the perspective from a bowling ball is, watch The Big Lebowski, because they do that.
Yeah.
They somehow
The bowling ball does not move in the perspective of the camera, but everything around it's going.
Yeah, the room is spinning and all this stuff. So this is where we are, and we're looking out at the cosmos, and everything is moving. This is why it took the ancients, some of the ancients, so long to figure out that we are actually a rolling ball in space.
Right.
As opposed to space rolling around us.
Yeah.
So, precession from our perspective on Earth, we could describe it as the space rolling around us. And that is, if you were to pick a day, for example, that, let's say you were looking at a star on the horizon and you're looking west at night, and the star, if you watch it, if it's 1 degree of arc above the horizon and you watch it for 4 minutes, it will move down and go behind the horizon. 1 degree of arc after 4 minutes. So the precessional cycle is a reverse motion. And so, like any spinning object on Earth, like if you spin a top, or you spin a quarter, or you spin a
Dinner plate.
Yeah, whatever. It will naturally precess, like the axis of it will wobble in the reverse direction to the direction you spun the object.
Yeah.
And that is called precession. So there's this idea that our axis may be doing this very thing. And scientists aren't very sure.
It's not clear, yeah.
It's not clear whether it's our axis or it's actually something maybe the entire solar system is doing.
Right, the axis of the sun maybe
Right.
causing the precession, yeah.
The point is that when you're looking at a star at night in the west, you're looking away from the sun. If during the day, when you look at the sun, there are stars behind it that you can't see.
Yeah.
And the path that the sun traces in the sky throughout the year is basically where the zodiacal constellations are located. It's called the
Plane of the ecliptic.
yes, the plane of the ecliptic. So we have 12 constellations along the plane of the ecliptic, and those are the zodiacal constellations. So if you were to be looking at one of those constellations at night, this time of year, in 6 months, you will be looking at the stars that are 180 degrees from where you were looking right now.
Yeah.
Because you're on the other side of the sun, and so at night you're looking away from the sun the other direction.
Yeah.
So naturally, over the course of the year, the zodiacal constellations travel, quote unquote, in one direction from east to west.
Yeah.
The precessional year, which moves in 1 degree of arc every 72 years, would move those constellations
Backwards. Yeah, from west to east.
From west to east. So if you were to take a picture at one time of year, let's just say the spring equinox, which is when the ancients typically made their markers
Yeah.
for the positions of the stars in the zodiac. If you took a picture of a star in one of the zodiac constellations right now, at this time of year, on this very day, 72 years from now, if you took another picture, you would notice that star you took a picture of had moved 1 degree of arc from west to east.
Up, yeah,
Moving above the horizon.
Right.
So if you multiply that 72 times 360, which is the
full
degrees in the circle, that star would actually go all the way around behind you from west to east and then come back up and be in the same position it was
When you started.
when you first started.
25,920
years later. That's right. Later before, whatever. Sorry. So that is the action of precession from our vantage point.
On its rolling ball in space.
That's right.
Yeah.
You want to take a hack at the other one?
Yeah. So the way I find this interesting is that it's these astronomical cycles, because we are on this object that's going through all these cycles, we basically have wheels within wheels. So the smallest wheel is the Earth's rotation around its axis. Okay, and you can see that just by going outside and looking at the sky for any amount of time. Things move across the sky, like the sun, the moon. If you're looking at night, the stars all kind of cruise across the sky. That is caused by the smallest wheel, the Earth's rotation around its axis, and it completes it in 24 hours. The next larger wheel is the Earth's orbit around the sun, right? That takes 365 days, and the same thing happens from that cycle. Everything in the sky moves all the way around the entire planet, but it takes a year, and in order to see that motion, you have to eliminate the small wheel, the day wheel. And the only way you can do that is by going outside at the same time every day or at night. So like, let's say you go outside every night at 10 o'clock, and ignoring daylight saving.
Yeah.
10 o'clock every night, you go outside and you look at 10 o'clock every night, and over the course of the year, you will notice that all the stuff in the sky moves across the sky just like it does over the course of a single day. It goes from east to west or whatever, and the whole rotation completes itself in 1 year. The great year, the precessional cycle, first of all, it's precessional, so everything moves backwards relative to the day and the year cycle. Okay, so everything is going the wrong direction, basically. And to eliminate the day and the year cycle, you can only go out once a year on the same day at the same time once a year and take a picture of the sky, and you'll notice over the course of 25,920 years that everything moves all the way around the whole sky moves all the way around the entire Earth, but it goes the reverse direction that it does during the day and year cycles.
Yeah.
Okay, and like that's the way that's happening. When you look at the bigger system, it's like there's two competing theories. One is that the actual axis of the Earth is wobbling, and that it takes 25. So like, again, you picture the top. When you first spin a top, it's spinning perfectly. There's no wobble. But if you flick it, if you just give it a little tap with your finger, it'll start to precess. Like you'll give it enough inertia to where its axis begins to turn, and you'll notice that it's turning. And its motion of turn is much slower than the actual spin that the thing has. It's spinning very quickly, so many rotations per second. But the wobble will be much slower, and it always goes in the opposite direction of the spin. So one theory is that that's what the Earth's axis is doing, right? So that the Earth is spinning, and it's got this precessional wobble in it, which makes the axis basically turn. And one of the ways that they point this out is that the axis right now is pointing roughly at Polaris, the North Star. But over the precessional cycle, the axis, as it turns, describes a circle in the sky, so it doesn't always point at Polaris.
It moves away from Polaris.
Right. So over time, it moves away from Polaris, and like, I think 6,000 years ago, there was a different North Star. I can't remember what it was called, but there's another one in the vicinity of Polaris that it used to point at like 6,000 years ago.
It starts with a V, maybe?
Yeah. Vega? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I think Vega's somewhere else. But anyway, there's three stars in that area that over time the axis will point at due to precessional rotation. So, or it could be that the solar system itself, because there's some ideas that there are some objects out there in space that appear not to precess with the rest of the universe. And if that is the case, that means that they are also precessing with the Earth, which implies that the precession is something larger than the planet and includes these other bodies. So,
But I mean, like, how could I just don't see how like something so much more massive than us in general could like wobble without us.
No, it's not wobbling. So like one of the possibilities is that the sun is actually a binary star, and that it has a binary
And
companion.
it's actually rotating around.
And if it's orbiting something else, then that orbit will cause what we see as precession.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so using the axial rotation idea, or the axial wobble idea, this like may give you a way to understand it. Like when you think of the solstices and the equinoxes. So the axis of the Earth is tilted, and on the equinox, when the day and night are roughly equal, our axis is tilted perpendicularly to the direction of the sun. So if you hold your hand out in front of you, make a fist, that's the sun, and then you hold your other arm like bent at the elbow, like the tilted axis of the Earth, perpendicular to your fist. That's the equinox.
Yeah.
On the solstice, it would be like putting your fist towards your hand or towards your elbow, where the axis of the Earth is tilted either away from or towards the sun.
Yeah.
So if there is an axial wobble, and you imagine the sun as this center position and the zodiacal constellations around the sun, and then you put the Earth around the sun showing its axis.
Yeah.
On the equinox, during the day, you're looking, if you look at the sun, there's a certain zodiacal constellation behind the sun.
Yeah.
If you go 6 months later, the Earth is on the other side on the equinox, and it would be looking the other direction towards the sun. There's a different zodiacal constellation behind that.
Yeah.
So if you imagine the axis is actually wobbling instead of staying perfectly the same position as it goes around the sun every year, but it's actually precessing, you'll notice that after a quarter of the great year, the axis has turned a quarter of a turn.
Yeah.
So that the equinox, what used to be the equinox, is now the solstice.
Yeah.
So if you were only taking a picture every equinox, then as the axis turns, you're going to be looking at a constellation,
different place in space, yeah.
a different place in space.
Yes.
That's the best way I can describe
Right.
from the outside. Like, this is what
So I'm seeing it as the axis wobbling like really, really slowly.
Yes.
Right. So,
I will try. You know what? I'm going to try to draw up a diagram, and I may not do it tonight, but I have
one in the encyclopedia. There's an
I looked for some of them earlier, and I was just
I've looked at them, and
none of them really.
Yeah, none of them really. Yeah.
They're confusing, but I
Yes.
have this way of illustrating it. Like, I've done it many times, like, because we have the Hill Hinge project.
Yeah.
The Hill Hinge project.
The Great
going
Texanian
on.
Hill Hinge project.
And we've
Yeah.
we brought some people up to the top of the hill to show them the Great Texanian Hill Hinge project. And I end up describing precession to people over and over.
Yeah.
And so I've got this way of doing it with a stick showing the axis and a rock in the middle, and then a circle drawn around showing the zodiacal constellations. And as that axis changes, if you were taking a picture every equinox, because we have a post out there that's marking the equinox.
Right.
So if our axis is actually wobbling, then in 72 years, it will have wobbled one degree of arc in reverse, which means our equinox position according to the sun, relative to the sun, if you imagine the Earth moving around the sun, it will have to shift further around the sun in order for it to be perfectly perpendicular to the sun again.
Right.
Which means that the zodiacal constellation that's behind the sun has shifted.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's it's easiest to
illustrate with-
to illustrate with an illustration.
Yeah. With a graphical, physical illustration. Yeah.
So for a second there, I was thinking of it as it's kind of like a gyroscope with two rings, perpendicular, and
Go ahead.
no, like I couldn't really figure out how
Fail.
to explain what I was visualizing. Made perfect sense a second ago. I'm just gonna let that one go.
Well,
Moving on.
the other interesting thing, so the whole thing about wheels within wheels, like, there's this giant gap in the astronomical cycles. You know, if you don't include the great year, you have the diurnal or daily cycle, the smallest wheel, and then you have the annual or yearly cycle, the next biggest wheel, and then without precession, the next cycle is the rotation of the sun around the center of the galaxy, which takes hundreds of millions of years. Okay, and there's like what's interesting is if you stick the precessional year in there and you look at those progressions of times, then it makes sense. There's a logarithmic or some kind of mathematical correct progression of the increase of time, right? The difference between 24 hours and 365 days, and then 25,920, and then the millions of years that the sun takes to go around it. There's a progression there that makes sense. Without the great year, there's a huge gap. It's where there's something missing.
Yeah, but instead you have this almost like this spiral of ratios.
Yes.
Right, where the ratios start out small and they get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
So you end up prescribing this spiral, and I wonder if that's spiral.
It's probably phi. Yeah.
Okay, so but this gave me a great idea. This idea of the galaxy. So when you look out at the night sky and you see the Milky Way galaxy in the sky, there are all these background stars that are not in the Milky Way galaxy.
Yeah.
Now imagine we fast forwarded ourselves to 180 degrees on the other side of the Milky Way, of the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Now when you go outside and you look at the night sky and you look towards the center of the Milky Way galaxy, which is right now located right near Scorpio,
Yeah.
it would not be near Scorpio anymore. When you went to look at the center of the galaxy, because we're 180 degrees on the other side of the galaxy, we'd be looking in the other direction.
Yeah.
So if these zodiacal constellations are made up of stars that are far away from our galaxy, we'd actually be looking at the opposite zodiacal constellation than Scorpio
Yeah.
when we look towards the center of the galaxy. Precession is the same thing, except
towards
it's
the sun.
relative to the sun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good description. Yeah. That would actually, like, moving all the way that far around the galaxy would shift all the background stars. We would have.
I know, but
yeah.
so imagining some of them are so ridiculously far away that their patterns would remain the same.
Right.
Right. That's what's happening with us in the sun.
Yeah.
When we are on the other side of the sun, the background stars in the Milky Way don't change.
Right.
Like,
They're not
we
changing.
can't tell
Yeah.
that they've changed at all because it's our
The
perspective
distance is too
too
far.
far.
Yeah.
So this is why this whole idea of astrology is basically following the astrological or what zodiacal constellations that are on the plane of the ecliptic. In other words, whenever you go outside and look at the sun, if you could see all the background stars, take your Google star map out and point it right at the sun, you're going to see a zodiacal constellation behind it. It's one of those 12.
Yeah.
And if you go out every month and you look at the sun, it's going to be a different zodiacal constellation every month because there's 12 months in a year.
Yeah.
There's 12 zodiacal constellations.
Yeah.
So precession is happening very much slower. And it's slower to the point that
It's almost
basically
impossible to see. Yeah.
Right, it's impossible to see, but after 2,160 years, you go out on the same day and point your phone at the sun, you're going to see a different zodiacal constellation in there, and it's going to be going in reverse to the way the normal zodiacal constellations would go behind the sun every month of the year.
Right. So the way that the ancients used to find out what the age, what the zodiacal or precessional age was, is on the either the spring or the vernal equinox. You go out just before dawn, so right before the sun rises. Okay, so the sun is still below the horizon, it's still dark, and you can see stars. And you look directly to the east, and whatever zodiacal constellation is right there where the sun will rise.
The heliacal rising of that constellation.
Yeah, the heliacal rising. So that constellation is right where the sun will rise. That's the age we're in.
It's the vernal equinox is what describes what age we're in.
Yeah.
It's always the spring equinox, because in the fall equinox, it's going to be 180 degrees the other direction.
Right.
So right now we are in the age of Aquarius because on the vernal equinox, the spring equinox, Aquarius is behind the sun.
Right. We're transitioning from Pisces into Aquarius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the dawn.
Okay, I got it.
You got
it. The first ring that I was thinking of was the sun. So imagine you are looking at where the sun is going to come up, like you were describing.
Yeah.
Right. So the sun goes over your head, and that is the first ring that you imagine. So you got this first ring going around you. The second ring would be perpendicular to it and would be, coming up over the horizon.
Oh, I see.
Where yeah, like the constellation you want to track for 72 years would be, a point, and it's just that ring is just moving really, really slow.
It's like
1 degree every 72 years.
Right. That ring is always staying with the axis of the Earth. Is that what you're saying? So as the axis of the Earth slowly rotates, that ring is moving across the sky. Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's interesting. That is interesting.
Well, I guess like the second ring would be tracking the precessional
Wobble.
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Are we out of time, or did we not start the timer?
I don't think I started the timer. No, well, we got 1 minute left, and well, we got about 72 seconds left.
Of course.
1 minute and 12 seconds.
Okay, so the Watcher pointed out that Thuban was the North Star roughly 5,000 years ago, and that 13,000 years from now, Vega will become the North Star.
I knew it.
Yeah, New Vega was in there somewhere.
Vega is one of them because I've gone on Stellarium and like fast forwarded. And okay, so if you go on Stellarium and you pinpoint Polaris, the North Star, and then you take the pinpoint off of Polaris, but the camera is basically pointing
in that direction. Yeah.
perfectly in that direction. And then you just start fast forwarding time, and you get rid of the atmosphere so that it's always you can always see the stars.
Yeah.
You'll see Polaris start to spin, and then it starts spiraling out. The spiral gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it's just gone.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going, and there's some other stars spinning around and getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and then finally there's another one that's like really close to not moving. And you can pause it and check it out,
Yeah.
and then see how long it's going to take. That's
really cool.
That's what I
I've
did.
never
It's
done
pretty
that.
fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then you can go backwards in time and see when the more recent one was in the past. But so there are like think about what the North Star is to seafaring civilizations. Like there is massive periods of time where there is no North Star.
Right.
All of them are moving. Right now we are in an age, in a period that is like this is it's almost like that star lining up with our axis
Began the age of exploration.
begins the age of exploration. It begins this rise to the golden age because you can suddenly have this still point at night.
Right.
You can always count on.
Yeah.
Finally have direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can gather your 72 followers and get in a boat.
Yeah, so that's interesting that so 5,000 years ago there was a different North Star, and that was, some of these ancient maps seem to come from these periods, right? So
Yeah.
So maybe these age of explorations come and go in waves based on whether we have a North Star. Yeah.
Like that.
So 13,000 years from now, Vega is going to be the North Star.
Yeah.
So there's an 18,000 year transition from Thuban to Vega.
Yeah.
1 and 8.
That's right. 1 and 8 equals 9.
I was going to try to do one of those. What was that one?
What?
What was that meme that Ty sent us with the numbers about it? It was like HEB.
Oh, yeah.
HEB is our local grocery store
Yeah, in Texas.
in Texas. And he sent us this meme and it was like HEB.
Yeah.
H is whatever number of the alphabet. E is the other number of the alphabet. B is the other number of the alphabet.
Yeah.
And if you add all these up together and then it's 3 numbers and you add 3 and then you subtract this or whatever and it ends up being 6. It's like some ridiculous way
Yeah,
to
it's
get
like it equals 6, and then because there's 3, it's HEB. There's 3
three letters, so it's
Clearly,
66.
Satan. It's Satan.
We got to post that one in the show notes.
Yeah. But I've always loved the method for getting the foot, the imperial foot. Like that's the way to get that it includes both time and space has fascinated me for a long time.
Tell it again. What's the story,
Okay.
bro?
Isn't the Earth kind of squished, so you can't just like throw a giant tape measure around the Earth?
Well, there's a different equatorial or polar circumference, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, like to get
And the difference is like 72 miles.
yeah, probably. But the way you get the English foot is you take the equatorial circumference of the Earth, okay, and then you divide that by the number of degrees in a circle, 360, times 1,000, so 360,000. So you take, like, imagine you're doing this unitlessly. Like, you have no units. You just take a string and you run all the way around the equator of the Earth, and you have this length of string, okay? And then you take that length and you divide it into 360,000 pieces, okay? Now you have one piece that's been divided like that. And then when you divide that by the exact number of days in the sidereal, is it the solar? I think it's the solar year, which is 365.2424, whatever. When you divide that, you get the foot. You get exactly the length of the foot, which becomes 12 inches, right? So it's like,
Yeah, that's
it's crazy. Like, you have both the time, so 360. You have the number of degrees in the circle times 1,000, and then the exact amount of time or days in the sidereal year, the solar year, the mean solar year. Okay,
Yeah.
and like those numbers are so precise that, and yet when you do all that, and the length that you get is like 99.9994% of the length of the foot. That's the accuracy. So it's like to the.
That is ridiculous. Like, how could anyone use the metric system after hearing that?
That's right. It's like
Straight up.
I mean, it's based on the length of the year and the number of degrees in a circle, and in the size of the Earth at the equatorial circumference. It's like that length is based on all these things, and that to me is just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kyle, your friend was wrong.
What did he say?
Felix.
The guy,
Felix,
like,
it was telling you.
Oh yeah. He was
totally wrong.
I just couldn't freaking nail him. I couldn't nail him. He was nailing me too hard. He was really catching me off guard.
Yeah.
Hey, but he had a lot of good points. But I was like, yeah, that's great until we get hit by a comet, and then we don't have any more of your beers, and we don't have anybody that can measure the speed of light. Like, we're gonna need this other system.
Yeah. Yeah. And metrology needs standards, and like standards have always been, or for the longest time, were based on like astronomical cycles and then Earth measure geometry.
And the beautiful thing about the imperial system is that it is that man is the measuring stick of the universe in that system, and all of these measurements are roughly the actual size. Like the inch is roughly the width of the knuckle of your thumb,
Right.
and when you hold that thumb up into the sky at arm's length, the width of that knuckle is 1 degree of arc
Roughly.
in the sky.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yes. So
So the length of your arm and the distance that it. Yeah.
in that movie, was it Armageddon or whatever? The guy's standing out there and he's like blocking. It's Tom Hanks or something. What movie? He keeps blocking the sun out. He keeps blocking the moon out with his thumb, and then moving his thumb. He's looking at the moon, and he's doing
Was
this
it
thing.
Armageddon?
No, Tom Hanks.
Or it was Bruce Willis or what? I don't remember what. Freaking, I got us all mixed up. Ty's gonna get really mad at me.
Was it Armageddon, the one where the comet's gonna hit?
I can't remember,
Okay.
but whatever he's doing, he's standing out there in the field looking at the sky, and it was a space movie, whatever. He's going to go up into space later, and he's holding his arm out, and he's doing this thing with his thumb where he's looking at the moon, he's blocking the moon out with his thumb, he's winking at it, and he's shifting his thumb, and it's always like,
Apollo
what is he-
13.
Apollo 13.
Oh, okay.
Bam.
Yeah, it was Tom Hanks.
So he's doing that. He's actually measuring. That's what he's doing. Like that was.
Yeah.
And so whoever did that, put that in the movie, knew what the hell.
Yeah, and
That
that's
needs some mention shit.
Yeah.
that also the whole relationship between the sun and the moon and how they cover the exact. They're both 2 degrees of arc in the sky. And the relationship between their distances from Earth and their relative sizes makes them exactly the same size relatively in the
Right.
sky to us. So that which makes the moon perfectly able to eclipse the sun. So there's all these strange resonances in space, and this seems to be what caused ancients to understand that there was something sacred about the geometry of the universe and Earth and man and everything in it. This is why they saw divine intention, and why still so many people today still see divine intention, some kind of purpose that belies like just random chance.
So the sun and the moon in the sky have an apparent angular diameter of about half a degree of arc.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, half a degree of arc.
So that's
And
pretty cool.
that relationship is 400. And
Like
that
on average, or at like a certain point.
Well, yeah, I mean, not considering atmospheric lensing.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. And that
Well, I mean, I would, but I guess it's not at the near the horizon when there's severe lensing going on. So
yeah. Yeah, and then there's all the other weird, like 108 is also the atomic number of silver, right?
Yeah.
And the moon's like diameter is 1,080 miles, or I'm sorry, its circumference or its radius. So
Yeah.
that's 108, and then you take if that's 400 times smaller than the radius of the sun. So the sun is like 400 times larger than the moon, but it's like the distance that they are from the Earth, the sun is 400 times farther away from the Earth than the moon is, and so they are the same apparent size in the sky.
it's just crazy. Like, who did this?
Yeah, spaceship, moonship.
Are there any relationships like that between the Earth and other planets in the solar system?
Yeah, well, there's actually I can't remember the guy's
The
name.
one about Saturn or
Boyle's.
whatever.
It's called Boyle's Law. I think it's called Boyle's Law, and this guy Boyle. This guy was an astronomer, and he basically figured out that the distances that the planets are from the sun has this mathematical progression.
Yes,
And of course, there's one that's missing.
and that's where the asteroid belt is.
Right, Tiamat. That was the idea that Tiamat was there.
Yeah, so he basically predicted that there would be another planet in this place, and so everybody started looking for it, and they
Yeah.
somebody found something. They're like, "We found it," and then
Right.
they're like, "Wait, no, that's way too small."
Right.
And,
And they
then a
found
bunch of
millions
other
of them.
people started finding more and more and more, and that's how we eventually found the asteroid belt,
Right.
which was written about in ancient texts called the Hammered Bracelet.
Right.
In
The
Sumerian
bones
texts.
of Lucifer.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The hammered bracelet. Yeah. Yep. Also called the firmament sometimes. All right. I think that's it. We probably went 72 minutes over time.
Or the
All right. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate all 72 of our listeners. The podcast has grown massively since we had 0 listeners, so 72 is infinitely larger than 0.
Also,
right.
well, thanks for having me back on the show. This was super fun.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, bro.
Yeah, it's good to have you on the inaugural. Wait, is it really inaugural? No, it's not really. The 72nd episode. Yeah, we had to have you back on.
The first
Totally
time
honored.
we've ever done it.
That's right. The inaugural 72nd episode. It's the only time we'll ever do this.
Well, when we get to 720, we can celebrate again.
That's going to be such a serious episode.
That will be serious.
Oh.
Yeah. 108 will also be pretty serious. All right. Good night, Adamu. Be back to work.